Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Legislative Matters Now with M&M. I'm Melissa Southall, Self-Advocate Coordinator for People First and the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley. Thanks for joining us today.
And I'm Morgan Spicer, Special Projects Coordinator with the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley. Welcome to the show. We have another great show lined up for you today, and I can't wait to dive into the important topic of legislative advocacy. But this month, we're going to talk about something a little different that affects self-advocates. So how about you, Melissa? Are you ready to dive in?
Yes, indeed. For anyone that is new to watching the show, can you please explain the purpose of the show?
I sure can. The purpose of this show is to educate you, the self-advocate, on the important topic of legislative advocacy. Every month, we discuss a piece of legislation that applies to self-advocates and help you understand the topic and why it's so important. Now, this could be anything from a legislation bill or something that goes through the House or Senate. But today, we're going to talk about something a little different, but it still affects you as an advocate. So we also, when time allows, we'll speak to a self-advocate in our Advocate in Action segment as they talk about how they're using their self-advocacy skills to benefit their lives or the lives around them in their community.
We do this by having a guest speaker on the topic. We hope by doing this you will better understand that topic so it is less complicated. This month's guest will be joining us in just a few moments, but let's get the show started with Who You Gonna Call.
Today on Who You Gonna Call, this is an election year, and you wanted to make sure if you are registered to vote and you know where to vote. Who you going to call? Your city council member, your local county clerk's office, your state House of Delegates or state senators, your U.S. Senator or U.S. Congress members, or the West Virginia Secretary of State's office. So, Melissa, what do you think?
I say B, you call your county clerk.
All right, how about you, Morgan?
I'm going to go for E.
All right, Melissa, final answer?
Yes, B is my final answer. Call your county clerk.
Final answer for you, Morgan?
My final answer is E, and I'm going to lock it in.
You're both right. The correct answer is B and E. The reason both B and E are the correct answer is that while the Secretary of State has many duties, the primary one is to serve as the Chief Elections Officer of the state of West Virginia and oversees the election process throughout the state, along with recording of official campaign financial records and candidate filings, and they have a website where you can get election information. At the local level, along with their many record-keeping duties, the county clerk handles voter registration, changes in party affiliation, address, last name on voter registrations. In addition, the clerk is responsible for elections, obtaining and training poll workers, and counting ballots from an election. For more election information, you can go to govotewv.com. Or, as the Secretary of State says, contact your local county clerk's office, and that information is on govotewv.
Which means you can get the same information from both the Secretary of State and your local county clerk's office. But it may be more convenient to get some of the information from the county clerk. And Secretary of State Mac Warner has recommended contacting the county clerk about certain things because that's who actually handles things like where people vote and then reports them back to the state. To get more information about the county clerk's role in elections, our guest today is Mark Rhodes, who is the current county clerk for Wood County. Thank you, Mark, for joining us today.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. And before we get to the formal questions, how long have you been a county clerk and how long did you work in the office before that?
I was appointed county clerk the first time in August of 2013. I have worked for the county clerk's office since 2005, but I actually started helping with elections and budget, things of that nature, through the IT department in 1997.
What is the role of the county clerk when it comes to elections in West Virginia?
We are the elections coordinator. Just to put it easy, we make sure that anybody that wants to register to vote We maintain the voter registration rolls. We also go through and check like death certificates and obituaries to remove somebody if they should no longer be on the active rolls. We basically coordinate the election. This morning, I spent about 2.5 hours with 2 other representatives from each of the major political parties, just proofing the ballot to make sure that all the names were spelled correctly, all the names were in there on the ballot and in the correct order. So that is something we do because come March the 25th, we'll start mailing out absentee ballots.
So if people have questions about their registration, is that a question for the Secretary of State or the county clerk?
Actually, it's either one. Secretary of State's office, it is a statewide voter system. So when we enter you as a voter or make a change to your voter registration at your request, then that is actually stored on the Secretary of State server. So they do have access to it. They can look it up. You can call our office. We can tell you, which precinct that you're supposed to be voting in. Ask any more specific questions about the county, because a lot of times we do get the questions of, this is the primary election. Well, who can we vote for the Board of Education? And how many for each district, something of that nature. So, contacting the county clerk is good. If you have internet access, you can also look up your voter's registration yourself at govotewv.com. You can look it up. It'll show you what precinct that you're registered at and if you're still active.
Perfect.
Thank you. What are the different ways people can register to vote, and when is the deadline?
The deadline for this election will be April the 19th. It is 20 days before the election, or 21 days. And so it'll be April the 19th for this election. If you need to register, you can register either by coming to the office with a valid ID. You can register online. We get a lot of registrations right now from people that are renewing their driver's license. They go there. We have mail-in cards both on our internet access plus at the post offices. So you can normally pick up a card there if you just need to make a registration change.
Perfect. So what if a person used to vote but hasn't in years? How long is their registration valid?
The registration is valid for 7 years. If you have no activity, an activity can be just you changed addresses and you reported that to us and did an address change. That's an activity. It doesn't mean that you have to vote, but it's just some form of activity for that. Before we do cancel you, we send out a notice to say that after 4 years, we will make you inactive, which just means, again, if you have some form of activity, either going to vote or updating a status, then that will make you active again. But we do send a notice out before we cancel people.
Great. What are the different ways in which people can cast a ballot?
Right now, we have either absentee ballot if somebody is going to be out of town through early voting on election day. You can request an absentee ballot, or for medical reasons, if you're going to be confined, like a nursing home or something of that nature, then we can send it vote absentee that way. We have early voting that starts 10 days before the election and runs through. It starts the Wednesday, 2 weeks beforehand, and includes the Saturday. So we have weekend voting for that, and then election day. Our military and overseas people or somebody with disabilities can actually request to vote online. And we will set up, you request an absentee online, you will be mailed an electronic ballot. Basically, you go to vote online, and then that will come back to us.
Okay. So you mentioned absentee ballots just a few moments ago. Can you talk a little more about that, since there's been some changes to those in recent years?
Not really, not a whole lot of changes. Now, I will say in 2020, on the average, we send out about 400 absentee ballots for a primary election and around 700 for a general election. In 2020, with COVID, we did almost 9,000 each election cycle. So there was a huge amount that went out. The absentees it is in West Virginia, it is a voter initiated request. So you actually have to request a ballot. We will send you an application. You complete that. We will send you out a ballot once we receive them. As of right now, as of today, we've had 11 requests for ballots. So we should have those. And on March 25th, we will send those out.
Great. We work with individuals who have transportation issues, and it would benefit them to be on the permanent absentee ballot list. Please explain what that means and how do they sign up?
Actually, the permanent absentee ballot list, you do need a doctor's excuse. Doctor can basically will just write a note that says this person is either going to be confined at home, they have different types of limitations, something of that nature, and we keep that list. So you do not actually have to apply. What we end up doing is we make contact just to make sure that you still want a ballot before the election, and then we just automatically send it out so you don't have to fill out an application each time. So it's one of those, it kind of takes a little bit of a step out, but we do verifications so that we're just not sending a ballot to somebody's house and they're no longer there. So we just want to make sure that what we're sending out goes to the correct person.
So I used to be a poll worker, and I heard that the West Virginia legislature passed a bill that allows poll workers to work partial days, which is awesome. Is there a need for poll workers, and how will that help?
We just got our poll worker list. The poll workers are actually assigned by the party, by the Republican and Democratic parties. They make the nominations. They specify what precinct you work in and what job you're doing. We're hoping that this helps out. This was we've had a couple of counties where somebody left in the middle of the day. And by law, there was no way to replace them in the middle of the day for somebody to work a partial day. So this will allow for that to happen if somebody does have to leave. I've sent employees out to cover precincts when somebody got sick, in the middle of the afternoon and they couldn't finish out their day. So this would allow us just a little bit of an alternative and make sure that we have enough people at the precincts. We're required, the precincts are just like our office here. Everything is done by pairs. It is done when you walk in to sign in to vote at the location, there'll be a Democrat and Republican sitting beside of each other. When you go to ballot in, it's a Democrat and Republican. So everything is done in pairs just to make sure that everybody is done legal. Keep honest people honest.
Yes. And like I said, I've worked the polls before, and yeah, it's fun because you get to see so many people, coming in to get signed in, registered to vote. And then my job was as soon as they got them registered, I got to take them to the e-ballots and show them how to use it and let them cast their vote. It was just amazing that it takes so many people to do it, but it actually works out really well.
Well, I can put you on the list.
Actually, I am on that list. I think I did it. I think a couple years ago. I don't remember when it was exactly.
I was supposed to say we just got our list in, and the Democrat and Republicans both appointed the same people, the same person, to a couple of different positions because they were nonpartisan. Normally, the parties will not appoint a nonpartisan at all. They only want to have their party represented. But finding it harder to find people to work the polls, that both started. So where I thought we had a couple of alternates already, that's been scrapped because they've got them appointed in different locations, same person. So we're going through the list to make sure that those are correct before we start sending out notices for poll workers.
Excellent. So what if someone needs help voting? Can they bring someone with them, and can the poll workers help them?
Yes. If you do need help voting, whether it be for visually impaired, shaky hand, and don't think that you can touch the right spot on the express vote, something of that nature, whatever your reason may be, you can bring somebody with you. They have to sign a form saying that they're assisting. If they come in and they don't have anybody to assist them, then two poll workers of the opposite parties can go and assist them also. So we can make sure that they do get that. And that's the same with an absentee. We do get absentees back where it's signed off on by, like the child that says they helped mom or dad vote, assisted them in marking their ballot.
How accessible are the voting machines?
There's a couple different things built into the voting machines. Audio is one of them. We do have an audio ballot that we can plug in a set of headphones, and the person can listen to it, and it is Braille acceptable. It has the Braille buttons on it, and also we can make the font larger. This is something that was not on our old equipment, probably that you work with, Morgan. This is what we have got last year. We can actually increase the size of the font so that you can see it better if you need it that way, and we can actually reverse the color on it. So instead of seeing white on black, you can see black on white, which is better for some people also. They're not real sensitive. I mean, you do have to actually touch. Or in 2020 during COVID, we went through a lot of Q-tips. I bought Q-tips to use as styluses, and my wife bought every Q-tip at every Dollar General and Dollar Tree around this area for us to use. So they are fairly accessible. We've had a couple of people that used the audio ballot that didn't care for it because they said it took them too long. They knew who they wanted to vote for, but it would read off, president, and it would read the names. And then when you make your selection, it would say you selected this person, not da 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 da. So it read the names again. They were like, we know who we're voting for. We don't need that. We need to skip that part of it. So there's no skip.
Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me. And as I said, if there's any questions at all, please call your local county clerk. They can look up, your registration, your status, and also tell you which precinct you are or what procedures you need to go through to make sure you get a ballot so that you can express your opinion.
Well, Melissa, I'm glad we got to speak to County Clerk Rhodes because voting is something I am passionate about. It is our right as a self-advocate, and it's one of the many ways to make your voice heard. I can't urge you enough to make sure you are registered to vote, or if you get a chance to be a poll worker, it's an amazing experience. Moving on, it's time for our Advocate in Action, right, Melissa?
That's right, Morgan. This month, our Advocate in Action is Becky Spaulding. She lives in Poca, West Virginia, and is attending Partners in Policy Making. And Morgan got the chance to speak with Becky Spaulding, and so let's go to her interview.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us, Becky, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. So let's get started. So what encouraged you to take Partners in Policy Making?
I suffered a severe anoxic brain injury in 2015, and I was unable to speak because of a tracheostomy, and decisions were made on my behalf without my knowledge or participation. And I've seen firsthand how important it is to involve the person and allow them to make decisions for themselves and advocate for themselves. And it's not an easy journey trying to figure out all the loopholes. And I felt that taking the class would give me better knowledge so that I can not only help myself, but help others who cannot speak for themselves.
Yeah, that's the reason why I took Partners as well, was because, in my position, and I get to talk to so many self-advocates on a daily basis, the knowledge that I would get from partners in policymaking can help me educate and better help self-advocates understand things that they may have issues with.
Exactly. Yeah, education is the most important for yourself and as well as others, to educate them, to get them in that position to self-advocate.
Yes. So what are some barriers that you have overcome in your life to get where you are now?
Prior to my injuries, I still have bipolar disorder and ADD. Working with those mental illnesses has allowed me to see that I can overcome the barriers of mental disease, and it allowed me to be in a position where I was able to maintain a full-time employment, and then I gradually worked my way up till I became an instructor for Connaught County schools.
And that's where you work now?
Unfortunately, I have not worked since my injury 2015, but I hope to have severe dysarthria, and I hope to go back to teaching. If not, I do plan to continue my education and allow myself to be employed. Yeah.
Okay. So why is self-advocacy so important to you, Becky? And what can you share about your experiences?
Self-advocacy is so important because, as I said, at the beginning of my injury, I was unable to speak due to the trach, and was not able to write. I had absolutely no way of communicating. Decisions were made that were not in my best interest. And those decisions were putting me in a position where I was going to become a long-term resident of a nursing home. And at that time, I was 42 years old. Very important to have my independence. And to learning to advocate for myself is very important, as I wanted my freedom of choice, to make decisions for myself, to event that led to my having surgery to remove my trach. And now I live at home. I do live with my mother, and we take care of each other. But it was important to become an individual, not just another number in a facility, to allow me to be myself, to make my personal choices, and be a member of the community.
Agreed. That is what to me, that's what self-advocacy is about, is to give people the power to know that they have the rights to make their own choices for the way they want to live their life. You know, I think that's very important for people to know. I mean, you have a choice, and your choice matters, and your voice matters.
Yes.
So, is there anything that you think that people should know about people with disabilities that they might not already know?
People I have experienced that people would see me in my wheelchair, had a patch over my eye, so they assume that you need help when you don't. And I had an experience where I was leaving a physician's office, and my attendant went to get the car. It was perfectly safe where I was. And a person came up to me and said, "Do you need help?" I shook my head, no. But they took off with me in my wheelchair. I couldn't speak, so I couldn't say stop, you know. And fortunately, my attendant pulled up. So ask the person if they need help. Don't just assume you know what, where they need to be. Even I shook my head, no. Matt, no, I was fine. But it was a scary experience because I can yell for help. Since then, I've got one of the personal alarms that's so many decibels that would draw the attention. But ask us and listen to our answer. When we say no, you mean no.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is part of being a self-advocate, is learning to do things yourself, and we don't have to rely on somebody all the time. It's good to have that friend or that parent or that relative to support you, but you know, this is your journey. You don't have to ask for their help all the time.
Exactly.
So, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just how important I know with my personal journey that I would not be where I am today if I had not self-advocated. You stood up for myself and said, long-term nursing care, nursing facility is not for me. Like you said, I have a voice, whether it's a physical voice or I have to type it out. I still have thoughts, wants, needs, and I am able to meet all of that myself. Or if there's something I need, I can, now I know there are organizations out there who can give me the information I need to get what I need. So it's just so very important for you to use your voice, whether physical or not, to make sure that you're doing what's in your best interest. And only you know what is best for you.
I definitely agree. Well, Becky, thank you so much for talking with us today. It was good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've been talking to Becky Spaulding, this month's Advocate in Action. Remember, if you're using your self-advocacy skills in a positive light to benefit your life or the lives of others, and you want to be featured on a future segment of Advocate in Action, please reach out to us here at the ARC. You can call us here at 304-422-3151 or email me or Melissa personally. I can be reached at morgan.spicer@thearcmov.org.
I may be reached at melissa.southall@peoplefirstwv.org. We would love to have you on a future episode. Morgan, I think that just about does it for this episode. We want to thank Wood County Clerk Mark Rhodes and our Advocate in Action, Becky Spaulding, for taking the time to speak with us.
Yes, a big thanks to all who spoke with us today, and I can't wait to do this again next month. Until next time, remember, advocacy matters.
And so do you. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.